Hello, so here we can see we've got a doodler doing a bit of an oil painting. So if we watch carefully, we can see looks like there was some basic line works here before he started this drawing, and I think that might have been because there's a bit of graphite drawing took place first, was erased and didn't quite erase properly. So I had to paint over the top, or the doodler had to paint over the top and try and draw over that again. So the lesson learnt from this one was, if you're gonna sketch for an oil painting, draw it with the charcoal pencil. Much easier to work with, and not so hard to remove if you make a mistake. You do have quite dark lines, you're fairly committed, but it's okay because you're going to paint over it. So yeah, definitely that's what you want to be doing, I think. Well, definitely what I want to be doing if I'm going to copy this guy and do an oil painting again. So main thing here is just trying to get all the outlines in. One thing I've noticed here is don't try and do a perfect drawing. Just make it rough and refine it just as much as you need to in order to give you something to work with on the painting. Because at the end of the day, you're going to paint over the whole lot anyway, and then you're going to get another chance to fix all those mistakes and problems you make on it. Good. I marked out, or the doodler here has marked out where to put a lot of the shading, and then it makes it a bit easier. So at this stage, going in and putting the darker lines in, and trying to really much to copy where the darker tones are. It makes a bit more. Oh look, amateur use of the camera there. Lots of autofocus. New camera, not so good at using it yet. So trying to get the hang of it. What bit of a tissue there. That's quite useful for lifting off a bit of oil paint when there's too much in the area. One thing I think really learned from this. I learned this last time I was painting. But didn't remember to do it this time. Use plenty of paint. That's the problem here. Is oil paint, when you work with that, it's fairly translucent. You can see through it quite well. And if you don't put a lot on the board, when you start working with it, it gets really, really thin in some areas. Problem with this painting was too much thin paint was used to start with, and so it made it difficult, and lots of layers had to go on. In the end, the finished result was okay. It's not. I wouldn't complain too much about the thickness of the paint because it worked, but it'd make it a lot easier. Put plenty of paint on, much easier to blend with as well. So after the dark areas on, just put in the next darker ones. There's a lot of contrast, so the next darkest is actually really quite light, and then just blending all those levels together. Did all this once, and then I noticed what he was doing is they had to go back and put more layers on it later, or after he'd done on the body, because the translucent paint was just letting too much light through, and it was all. And so the red background here is to give it a bit of colour, a bit of interest, and a lot of that was starting to show through, probably a bit more than was really intended to start with. But I mean, at the end of this painting, pretty happy with the results on the whole. Alright, yeah, so just a bit more focus messing around in here. I just wanted to do a bit of oil painting because while the graphite is really enjoyable and it's quite precise, when it comes to shading with the pencil, it just takes forever. And one of the difficulties, I think, is when you're drawing, is you start drawing and you've got a bit of a feeling for the picture you want to do. You know where you want it to go, you enjoy it, but after looking at the same reference material for 2 weeks and shading, I don't know, a square 10 centimetres a day, just getting it spot on, you get pretty bored with the same picture. And by painting, able to lay down large areas of tone much, much quicker. So that's why I've been trying to really get into this painting a bit more and work with it. Here, blending with a dry brush, which is quite nice. This time, remember to actually put down some thicker paint and blend it in. Works much better, much quicker. The final picture is not the smoothest, but it does get the idea across, and I'm happy enough with that. If you want very sharp lines, I tend to do a bit more just pen and ink at the minute. And working on the contrast. So the sort of fur thing that she's wearing was the lightest part of this picture, and then her skin was the next lightest. and trying to get a bit of mid-tone in that was challenging. And so what I'm trying to do here is get a lot darker in the clothes, so there's some contrast to work with. Again, blocking in the different tones and just blending it through. Now, what I'm going to do in a minute, I think, here it is. When this is a drawing, put the stretch marks and stretch lines in the material, it could show the form, but it just couldn't get it to work with the paint so well. I found it just working with the mid-tones and it was a better way to show the shape. I guess that's one of the differences between ink and line work and tone with a paint, I guess. Okay, so we're just trying to blot in all this white fur stuff. Reference. All the time doing this, I was very conscious of the fact that I wanted the background to be dark. So painting this, the whole picture looks fairly light at the moment, and I was looking forward to getting to the background in to try and see some of the contrast. And so this bit was challenging, and I was trying to think, how light is this going to be compared to the background? But it worked out in the end, and what I just did is after I did the background, I went back in and tried to balance some of the tone again. I think for me that's the main thing about painting, is you're just constantly going over and over rebalancing those tones. Which is different to working with a pencil, where all you're doing is building up the tones. Well, not all, but mostly just building up the tones. You take some down with the eraser, but often you just build them up. So the hair, what I decided again to commit on this one, or the Doodler that we're watching did. Look at the dark areas. One thing we realised, when the hair starts blending, it's going to the dark areas are going to become a bit lighter, light areas a bit muddier, and so I started with a stronger contrast, really blacked in the darker areas of the hair, and then put the next shades in, the tones, so the mid-tones and the lighter tones, and when they're all in, then just take another brush and just start blending them together with the flow of the hair, where the individual strands of hair likely to be. So here we go, just trying to work over this. I think the difference with doing hair when painting and from drawing is when you're drawing, or when I'm drawing, or when someone's drawing, is trying to work on the hair in blocks and just lining those blocks in, that tone. But with the painting, it feels more like you're trying to get across an impression of the hair. So it's putting blocks in and then moving those blocks or blending them together, which I don't really do with a pencil. And with a pencil, I lay them down and try and get the different strands and the blocks of hair working together in one shot. I don't know if that made any sense or not. It did in my head, maybe. So yeah, once more the hair and that becomes darker tones, trying to get some of the turning planes, especially on that fur, so give it a bit of a volume to it. I think one of the things I've been learning with drawing recently is if you start drawing, just see it through to the end, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but often it improves the more work you do on it, and then you learn how to do better drawings, paintings. And that's largely what I'm doing with this painting, or I think the Doodler in this is doing this painting. Oh, here comes the background. It's just seeing the picture through to the end. Some bits, the paint may have not been thick enough on it, so the blending could have been smoother, but it's still good to finish the picture and see what the total effect is. Because sometimes, if you get an idea across and it works, it doesn't have to be the most technically accurate, and it can be more interesting as well. So yeah, so I've got a lot of the darker tones in here. Now the red, you can see the light shines great on this, but I could not photograph this at all very well. So at the end of it, we're going to have a photo that's going to be pretty plain. There we go. That's the final, but it's just oil paints much better in real life than they are in here. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye bye.